Good morning, everyone. I am Dr. Ancelino Davis, and this is Science and Perspective. Today is January 18th, 2021, and I will be sharing with you some historical hurricane track data and talking about the science around hurricanes, and also sharing some perspective on the impact of hurricanes in the Bahamas and what you can do to protect yourself and your business. To start off, let's remind ourselves that science is the study of the world around us, and depending on where and when you are, the scientific data that you collect or gather will be different. Perspective, though, depends on your lived experience, your past, and your understanding of the world. And depending on who you are, the effect of the data on your life may also be different. So let's get into it. If you would like to view more hurricane data for yourself, you can actually visit coast.noaa.gov and view their historical hurricane tracks. On the hurricane tracks, you can actually select what type of hurricane you want to look at, what category. You can even go down to extratropical or tropical depressions. You can look at the pressure. You can look at the year that those hurricanes passed through the area that you selected. And you could search how far of a distance you want from that region. Over here, you can choose which months of the year you want to look at, or if you want to look at hurricanes that occurred during an El Nino year. Now, on this map, these are all the hurricanes that passed through the Bahamas. And this data goes back quite a ways. You can see there are 43 hurricanes here, and these go back to 1854. But for our purposes today, we're going to start from today and go back through our major hurricanes. And again, I only selected the hurricanes in the top three categories, 5 down to 3. Let's look at what Hurricane Dorian did. It came out of the Atlantic, it built up speed, and here it sat for a while. And you can see when it moves really fast, these circles are spaced out. But when it slows down, the circles kind of pile up on one another and get more of a smooth line along the edge. Now let's go back and look at all of our hurricanes again. We had Hurricane Dorian in 2019, Hurricane Irma 2017, just passed through the southern Bahamas. Hurricane Matthew in 2016, cut straight up the middle path. Joaquin in 2015, we remember how much damage Joaquin made in the country. Hurricane Irene in 2011, Ike in 2008, just passed through the southern Bahamas. Hurricanes Jean and Francis, they both hit Grand Bahama that year. Floyd in 1999, that was my first hurricane out of high school. I remember Hurricane Andrew, the year that we were going into high school, and yeah, that was my last major hurricane before I got into high school. But you can see the impact that these hurricanes had over the years. And we know in the Bahamas, the intensity of a hurricane is not necessarily reflective of how much damage it makes, because it could be a really strong hurricane that moves really fast, but it could also be a weaker hurricane that sits and you get lots of flooding and the water rising. So I want you all to really take into account how these hurricanes are behaving before we had 1992 Then 1999, that's a good 7-year gap. Then 2004, you have a 5-year gap. Then, well, Gene and Francis, they came together. So that was like, they were like a month apart. Then you have 2008, that's 4 years. Do you notice how they're getting closer together? 2008 to 2011, that's just 3 years, another 4-year gap, then 1 year for Matthew, then 1 year for Irma, then 2 years for Dorian. So these hurricanes are getting stronger, and you can see that. Look at the colors on the left-hand side. You see this dark purple is a category 5, but when you go up, you get to see more of those purplish colors. And these last few hurricanes, they're all in that purple range. Now, what I'm pointing out is that the Bahamas is going to experience more and more of these major, really intense hurricanes. And if you look at what happens around our hurricanes, we have suppression of our economy. And although many of you might be familiar with my biology or ecology work, many of you don't recall that I was also supplemental instructor for economics at the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore in Princess Anne, Maryland. When I look at this information and I take into account the effect that hurricanes have on our economy, I think now about the impacts of hurricanes like Hurricane Dorian, which sat on Abaco and Grand Bahama. And that actually, it didn't just erase infrastructure, it erased significant parts of our economy. The island of New Providence, for now, has escaped the major impacts of most hurricanes over the last few decades. And that puts us at risk. We have 70% of our economy, our government infrastructure, our schools, our citizen population are on New Providence. And we run the risk of having a hurricane like that hit our capital city and really destroy our economy. And maybe the hurricanes took a break because of COVID. But we are in that timeline where we can expect a major hurricane in the near future. Combined with that, we also have the effects of oil spills. So the Exxon Valdez oil spill happened in 1989. That's about 30 years ago. They still have oil underground in that seabed. And I don't mean deep underground where they have to drill for it. I mean, you move a few rocks and you're going to find oil. 30 years. In 30 years' time, with our economy making about $12 billion, that's lots of money. But when there's an oil spill, that the impacts of that oil spill last for decades. And we want to think about that in combination with the impacts of things like hurricanes. Hurricanes, we can't predict exactly when they come, but we know that we're about due. An oil spill, on the other hand, we can mitigate and we can control for the circumstances that cause an oil spill to happen. Making sure that the proper insurances are in place, making sure that the permitting process is transparent and that there is accountability to make sure that anyone that does look for oil in our country has the proper permits and the equipment that they use are the equipment that they have listed in their environmental impact assessment, and that those things have been properly vetted by appropriate professionals. At present, Bahamas Petroleum Company does not have the same vehicle, the same drilling ship that they have listed in their environmental impact assessment, drilling in the Bahamas. Their environmental impact assessment is also very old. We have new research and data on how dense the conch populations are over on the Kisal Bank. We have information regarding the sea turtles, the nesting seabirds in that area, which change the value of the area in comparison to the oil. We also are in a different situation where our current economy is recovering from the impacts of Hurricane Dorian, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic. So when we take all of this into account, perhaps we are not in a situation that we can risk an oil spill. When we add to that the fact that you have the Deepwater Horizon oil spill happened in the Gulf of Mexico just about a decade ago. And it did involve Halliburton, who's also involved in the BPC drilling. That that oil spill took 3 months to seal the well, just to seal the well, not to clean up the impacts of the oil, not to stop the oil from reaching the shorelines, not to recover any of the fisheries or tourism companies and economies and livelihoods in that area. And they're definitely never going to recover the 11 lives that were lost in that disaster. But remember that the BP Deepwater Horizon, they were able to marshal all of those resources from from the United States of America that had vested interest in protecting that shoreline and preventing the oil from reaching all of those coastal US states. I was part of the Bahamian team that was mobilized to go and review that area to see what natural resources we had in the area of the Kisal Bank, so that we would know what we had and what the value was, so that if we had to go to legal proceedings against BP for oil pollution, we would have recourse in that area. Right now, we don't have that type of legal recourse in the Bahamas. The government of the Bahamas themselves have said that we cannot challenge their drilling because we cannot afford it. So now I am actually reaching out to all tourism related businesses, and I want you to take into account the economics of your situation. How long can you survive as a business under this time of extreme duress? If there is an oil spill for 3 months during the summer, will you be able to survive on the heels of Dorian and the COVID-19 pandemic? Keeping in mind that this pandemic is still going to go on for a little while. Are you able to survive for another year, year and a half? Because we don't have the resources to stop an oil spill in 3 months. We don't. We don't have the capacity to clean up an oil spill in a year, 2 years. BPC does not have the resources. So I would like to encourage you to get together with your financial team, your legal team, to determine how much you would need from the government to survive. I would encourage you to reach out to your Minister of Tourism, your Minister of the Environment, and your Minister of Finance. Copy the Prime Minister of the Bahamas. And if you want more information on what the impacts are as just a Bahamian citizen, reach out to Our Islands, Our Future. And you can find them on Facebook, or you can look them up online and check out their website, which has lots of information regarding oil and oil drilling in the Bahamas and how we can protect our future. You can visit ourislandsourfuture.org. I hope you all appreciated that little bit of science and perspective. I hope you get an opportunity to sign the petition, and I hope that we do have a beautiful future ahead of us that allows us to have boiled fish and not oil fish. I love you guys. Have a great day.